"I never expected to see you again," Ethan Grayson muttered under his breath as he leaned against the sleek glass railing of the Westwood Plaza balcony, his eyes fixed on the crowd below. The spring evening in Seattle was brisk, the sun setting over the Puget Sound, casting long amber streaks across the city skyline, but nothing around him mattered except the figure standing near the outdoor cafe tables. Claire Thompson, looking just as graceful yet worn as he remembered, was bending slightly to help a little boy with a fallen toy, the sunlight catching her auburn hair and making it glow like copper. Her son, Liam, stood by nervously, clutching a small backpack, looking up at her with wide hazel eyes that reflected a trust Ethan couldn't ignore. Ethan's heart skipped, his chest tightening with a mix of nostalgia and disbelief. The boy, so familiar yet impossibly real, was unmistakably the age that aligned perfectly with the months after his last encounter with Claire. The timing made his mind race, the years of separation and silence suddenly compressed into a single heartbeat. Claire glanced around, unaware of Ethan's presence, laughing softly at something Liam had said, and it was a sound that stirred something deep inside him. He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, watching how she interacted with the boy, the tender guidance, the patience, the way her eyes softened when he stumbled. Ethan's polished navy suit and commanding presence contrasted sharply with her casual spring dress and the lightness in her movements, yet in that moment, he felt the invisible thread that had tied them together years ago pull taut. He remembered the late nights in his corner office, the phone calls that ended abruptly, the misunderstandings that had driven them apart, but seeing her now, in the golden hour, with this child who could be his own, forced him to confront the choices he had made. A waitress passed by with a tray of coffee, breaking his reverie, and he noticed the boy glance toward her with a shy smile, waving his tiny hand. The resemblance hit him like a jolt of electricity. Liam's smile, his gestures, even the tilt of his head mirrored moments Ethan remembered from his own past. He felt a mix of longing, fear, and a sudden surge of protectiveness, his instincts as a father awakening despite the years of absence. Claire turned slightly, adjusting Liam's jacket, and for a fleeting second, their eyes met, recognition flitted across her face, a subtle question hanging in the air, but she quickly averted her gaze, her posture defensive yet graceful. Ethan's mind was a whirlwind of calculations and emotions. Could it be true? Was this child really his? The thought of approaching, of revealing himself, of potentially shattering or healing the delicate balance of their lives filled him with both dread and hope. He cleared his throat, letting the word slip almost involuntarily, Claire, and the sound of her name on his lips seemed to echo across the plaza. The boy looked up, curiosity lighting his features, and Ethan realized that nothing about this moment could be rehearsed or predicted. Every heartbeat, every movement, every glance held the potential to change everything he thought he knew about the past and the future. The timing, the years, the child, they all collided in a single, potent instant, and Ethan stood frozen, caught between the man he had been and the man he needed to be, knowing that the next steps would define not just his reunion with Claire, but his relationship with Liam, whose existence he had only just begun to comprehend. Claire adjusted Liam's small backpack over his shoulders, checking to make sure his lunchbox was zipped securely and that his water bottle was within easy reach. The afternoon air carried the faint scent of blooming cherry blossoms from the nearby park, and she breathed in deeply, trying to steady her nerves as she navigated the narrow sidewalk crowded with pedestrians heading toward the weekend market. Liam glanced up at her and asked if they could get ice cream after school, his eyes wide with anticipation, and Claire smiled despite the tightness in her chest, nodding cautiously, knowing she would have to budget carefully to make it happen. She kept her pace steady, aware of the glances from passers-by but ignoring the subtle whispers, the way people sometimes stared at a single mother with a well-behaved child, as though assessing her worth in some invisible social ledger. Ethan watched from a distance, leaning slightly against a wrought iron fence near a small fountain, his gaze never leaving Claire and Liam, taking in every detail, the way Claire gently reminded Liam to watch for the curb, the small but affectionate gestures she used to guide him, the way she laughed at his jokes, even the ones that were barely coherent. His mind raced with memories of their past, of shared office laughter, coffee breaks, and late nights spent negotiating contracts, all of it colliding with this present moment where she was both familiar and profoundly changed, a mother, responsible for another life that was now undeniably his. He noticed the subtle tension in her shoulders, the way she carried herself with both pride and wariness, and he felt an unfamiliar ache of regret, imagining the years they had lost, the milestones missed, the conversations never had. As Claire and Liam approached the crosswalk, she held his hand carefully, scanning the street for oncoming traffic, and Ethan instinctively took a step forward, wanting to call out, to warn, to protect, but restrained himself, knowing that any abrupt move might startle them. Liam looked over his shoulder at him, sensing a presence, and Ethan quickly ducked back behind the fountain, his heart pounding with a mixture of relief and anxiety that he had not been seen. He allowed himself a moment to observe their interaction more closely, noting the small, tender moments between mother and child, how Liam mirrored his mother's gestures and how Claire responded with patient guidance and warmth. The sun dipped slightly lower, casting a golden hue over the plaza, and Ethan felt a determination rising within him, a need to engage with them not as an observer but as a part of their lives, though he was acutely aware of the fragile balance of trust and caution that Claire had maintained over the years. He rehearsed the words in his mind, how to approach without alarming them, how to bridge the gap of time, misunderstanding, and absence, all while keeping the moment calm and respectful. As they continued, walking toward the small community playground where Liam's laughter would soon echo across the park, Ethan's eyes lingered on the child, his son, and he realized that nothing about the passage of years could diminish the responsibility and the connection he now felt. He took a deep breath, adjusting his tie and straightening his jacket, preparing to step forward, to speak, and to enter a chapter of their lives that had been paused for far too long, knowing that the first words, the first gesture, would set the tone for everything that followed, and that patience, careful observation, and genuine emotion would be his only tools to navigate the delicate reunion he was about to initiate. Ethan stepped carefully onto the cobblestone path leading to the playground, his polished shoes making soft clicking sounds that seemed loud in the quiet afternoon. He kept a respectful distance, letting Claire and Liam reach the swings before he called out gently, "Excuse me, Claire." His voice was calm, controlled, but it carried a weight that made her pause mid-step, her hand tightening around Liam's. Claire turned slowly, shielding her son slightly behind her, her eyes narrowing with caution and surprise, and for a moment the world seemed to pause, the only sound being the distant laughter of children and the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. Ethan raised a hand in a non-threatening gesture, keeping his gaze soft, and said, "I know this is sudden, but I need to speak with you about Liam." Claire's chest tightened as she assessed the man before her, recognizing the unmistakable features, the same intensity in his eyes that had haunted her dreams for years. Liam, sensing the tension but unaware of the full context, tilted his head and asked softly, "Mom, do I know him?" Claire forced a calm smile and shook her head, murmuring, "Not really, sweetie, just someone talking to us." Ethan's eyes softened as he crouched slightly to be at their level, maintaining a respectful distance, and he said quietly, "I just want to make sure Liam is safe and happy. That is my only concern." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line as she gauged his sincerity, the flood of emotions from years of separation and abandonment threatening to overwhelm her composure. Liam fidgeted with the straps of his backpack, glancing between the two adults, and Ethan noticed the small gestures that mirrored his own, the tilt of the head, the frown of concentration when he was uncertain. Memories came rushing back to Ethan of late nights discussing future plans, office celebrations, and quiet moments that had ended abruptly with misunderstanding and pride. He took a slow breath and continued, "I realize this is a lot to process, and I do not expect anything from you, Claire, only the chance to speak and be transparent about my intentions. Liam deserves that, and I want to be honest with both of you." Claire's eyes glistened as she weighed the words, feeling the vulnerability behind them, the truth and care in his tone, yet the fear of opening old wounds and disrupting the fragile routine of her small family held her back. Liam shifted closer to her, sensing her hesitance, and Ethan offered a gentle smile, a small gesture of patience and understanding, reinforcing that his presence was not a threat but an offering of connection. The sun continued to lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the playground, reflecting off the metal swings and the surfaces of the slide, bathing the scene in warmth as if encouraging reconciliation. Ethan straightened slightly, keeping his composure and giving Claire space, and said softly, "I do not intend to rush anything, and I respect your decisions completely, but I hope over time we can find a way forward, even if it is only small steps at first." Claire inhaled slowly, the sound of Liam's laughter blending with the ambient city noise, and she nodded cautiously, allowing the possibility of dialogue, the smallest opening in the wall she had built over years of independence and self-reliance. Ethan's gaze lingered on Liam for a heartbeat longer, recognizing both the resemblance and the subtle spark of curiosity, and he knew that this moment, delicate and tentative as it was, marked the beginning of a journey that could change their lives while requiring patience, care, and mutual respect to navigate the long-absent connections they were only now beginning to rediscover. Ethan remained at the edge of the playground, his posture relaxed but his eyes attentive, observing Liam as he ran toward the slide, his small feet making soft thuds against the rubberized surface. Claire followed closely behind, her hand resting lightly on his back to guide him safely, her eye scanning the surrounding area for any potential hazards, a practiced vigilance born from years of raising her son alone. She glanced at Ethan, who had moved slightly closer, and noticed the careful distance he maintained, the way his presence was firm but non-intrusive, and a small flicker of curiosity crossed her mind, mingled with the familiar wariness that had been her companion since their last encounter. Ethan took a slow breath, letting the sounds of the city fade into the background as he focused on the subtle details of their interaction, the way Claire adjusted Liam's jacket when the breeze picked up, the quiet words she spoke to him that were laced with warmth and encouragement, the moments of laughter that spilled naturally between them. He felt the pull of responsibility, an undeniable connection, and a growing desire to be present, to offer support without overstepping, while the years of absence weighed heavily on him. Claire led Liam toward a cluster of benches, guiding him gently to sit and drink from his water bottle, and Ethan followed, still keeping a respectful distance, his eyes never leaving the two of them. He noted the resemblance between father and son, the shape of Liam's smile, the tilt of his head when he listened intently, the subtle gestures that mirrored Ethan's own habits, and a surge of emotion tightened his chest, a mixture of pride, longing, and concern. Claire adjusted the straps of Liam's backpack once more, brushing stray strands of hair from his face, and Ethan felt a pang of regret for the time lost, the milestones he had missed, the conversations and shared moments that might never be recovered. He wanted to speak, to bridge the gap that had grown over the years, but he also knew that Claire's trust would not be won with hurried words or impulsive actions. It required patience, observation, and a gentle persistence that respected her boundaries. Liam glanced up at Ethan, curiosity brightening his features, and Ethan offered a small smile, one that conveyed kindness and reassurance, a silent acknowledgement that he meant no harm and that he wished only to be a part of their lives in a positive way. The afternoon sun dipped lower, bathing the playground in a warm, golden glow that highlighted the fine details of Claire's careful guidance and the effortless energy of Liam's play. Ethan's thoughts raced as he considered the best approach, planning each word and gesture carefully, knowing that this first interaction would set the tone for everything that followed. He moved slightly closer, keeping his voice low and calm, and said, "Liam, would you like to show me your favorite part of the playground?" Claire's eyes flicked to his face, assessing, measuring the sincerity in his tone, and after a brief pause, she nodded slightly, a small opening, a tentative bridge across years of distance, signaling that perhaps this day could mark the beginning of something new, built on understanding, respect, and a shared bond that neither time nor absence could erase. Ethan watched as Liam scrambled up the steps of the small climbing structure, his little sneakers making soft taps against the worn wood, and he felt a mixture of awe and apprehension as he realized how much the boy had grown, how independent and confident he was even at his young age. Claire followed closely, her hand hovering just behind Liam in case he needed guidance, her posture both protective and relaxed, showing a mother who had mastered the delicate balance between supervision and allowing space for exploration. Ethan took another careful step forward, his voice calm and steady as he said, "Would you like me to help you up?" Liam paused, looking back at him with curious hazel eyes, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips, and then turned to Claire for approval. Claire nodded briefly, her expression guarded but willing, and said softly, "Go ahead, but be gentle." Ethan's heart lifted at the slight opening, his movements deliberate as he extended a hand toward Liam, who reached up with both of his small hands, trusting, though tentative. The contact was brief but meaningful, a bridge spanning years of absence and uncertainty, and Ethan felt a swell of emotion he had not anticipated, a mixture of pride, guilt, and hope. Claire watched silently, her lips pressed together, assessing every movement, aware of the vulnerability inherent in allowing another adult into their carefully structured world, yet also recognizing the sincerity and patience in Ethan's demeanor. As Liam descended carefully with Ethan's guidance, the boy's laughter rang out, a sound that seemed to lighten the tension in the air, and Ethan found himself smiling, relieved to see that his presence did not startle or upset him. The golden light of the late afternoon reflected off the metal slide and swings, creating a warm ambience that contrasted with the tight knot of nerves and anticipation coiling in Ethan's chest. Claire adjusted Liam's jacket, brushing a loose strand of hair from his forehead, and Ethan noticed the familiar mannerisms that mirrored his own, subtle gestures passed down through genetics, and he felt a deeper pull of connection, the realization that this boy carried pieces of both of them. He spoke gently, "Liam, you are very brave climbing that all by yourself," and the boy's eyes lit up with pride as he looked at Ethan for affirmation. Claire's expression softened slightly, a subtle relaxation of the tension in her shoulders, and she murmured, "He is brave, yes, but he also listens well." Ethan nodded, acknowledging her words, understanding the layers of responsibility and care she had carried alone, and he felt a renewed determination to proceed with caution, respect, and patience. He continued to interact, offering small pieces of guidance and encouragement while letting Claire lead, and he observed how effortlessly she balanced nurturing and discipline, her voice calm and even, her instructions clear yet kind. Every movement, every glance, every word exchanged between them seemed loaded with significance, each action a careful test of boundaries and trust, and Ethan realized that this tentative afternoon was more than play, it was a crucial first step in bridging the gap between past and present, between absence and engagement, and he felt a quiet, steady hope that with time, patience, and genuine care, they could begin to rebuild the connection that years of distance had almost erased. Ethan straightened from his crouched position near the sandbox, watching Liam build towers with small plastic buckets and shovels, and he marveled at how focused and meticulous the boy was, each movement deliberate, precise, reflecting a concentration that made him pause in admiration. Claire sat nearby on a low bench, her eyes flicking between Liam and Ethan, measuring each subtle reaction, her hands folded in her lap as she exhaled slowly, maintaining a calm exterior while her mind raced with memories of the past and the uncertainty of the present. Ethan approached the bench slowly, maintaining a respectful distance, his gaze warm and unobtrusive, and said softly, "Claire, may I sit for a moment?" Claire's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing the sincerity of his tone, and after a brief pause, she nodded, allowing him to join her, though still keeping a protective hold on Liam's jacket as the boy worked with his toys. Ethan lowered himself onto the bench, keeping his posture relaxed, and offered a gentle smile, acknowledging both of them without intruding, and he said, "I understand that you have built a wonderful routine here, and I do not wish to disrupt it. I only want to observe and offer support where it is appropriate." Claire's expression softened incrementally, her lips curving into a subtle acknowledgement as she replied, "Thank you for respecting that. Liam's world is carefully managed, and sudden changes can be confusing for him." Ethan nodded, noting the care and thought in her words, and he reflected silently on the years they had been apart, realizing that every action now required patience, understanding, and subtlety, that rushing forward could fracture the fragile trust that had been tentatively established in this short afternoon. Liam paused, looking up at Ethan with a curious tilt of his head, and Ethan leaned slightly forward, speaking gently, "Would you like to show me how high your tower can go?" The boy's eyes lit up, and he turned to Claire for confirmation, who gave a small, measured nod, signaling a tentative permission that carried a quiet weight of trust. Ethan extended a hand toward Liam, guiding him with care as he added a bucket of sand to the growing tower, and he observed Claire's gaze, noting the flicker of relief mixed with apprehension, the subtle shifts in her posture that spoke to her dual role as mother and protector. The golden hour sunlight illuminated the playground, casting long, warm shadows over the swings and slides, enhancing the quiet intimacy of the moment and the delicate process of reconnection. Ethan spoke softly to Liam, asking about his favorite games and what he liked about the playground, and he listened attentively, offering encouraging words that mirrored Claire's own nurturing tone, careful to validate the boy's experience while showing a consistent presence. Claire allowed herself to relax fractionally, recognizing the patience and empathy in Ethan's demeanor, and she reflected that perhaps, over time, the cautious bridge between them could support a future where both parents shared in the joy, guidance, and love of their son, with Ethan's words and actions demonstrating a careful commitment to presence, respect, and emotional attunement. Liam laughed as a small piece of the sand tower fell, and Ethan mirrored the reaction with a light chuckle, reinforcing a sense of safety, warmth, and engagement that gradually eased the tension, creating a shared rhythm of interaction that hinted at the possibility of trust and connection being rebuilt, one careful, deliberate step at a time, in the soft, fading light of the afternoon. Ethan stood and brushed the fine dust from his pants, his gaze never leaving Liam as he balanced carefully on the edge of the small wooden bridge spanning the shallow sandpit. Claire remained seated on the bench, her hands loosely clasped in her lap, observing with a mixture of vigilance and cautious curiosity, aware of Ethan's every movement yet tentatively allowing his presence to integrate into this carefully controlled world. Liam turned, calling out excitedly, "Look, I can do it by myself," and Ethan nodded. Encouragingly, his voice calm and supportive, "I know you can, Liam. You are very brave." The boy smiled, beaming at both of them, and Claire felt a flutter of relief mixed with apprehension, noting the gentle manner in which Ethan acknowledged and encouraged her son without overstepping. Ethan took a careful step forward, maintaining a respectful distance as he offered, "If you need a hand, I am right here," letting Liam understand that assistance was available but not imposed. Liam glanced at Claire, seeking her subtle approval, and she inclined her head slightly, the smallest gesture of consent that gave Ethan permission to remain involved while maintaining boundaries. The sunlight shifted across the playground, casting warm highlights over the swing set and slides, and Ethan felt the weight of years spent apart pressing against the hope he now held, the desire to connect with both mother and son while honoring the trust and autonomy Claire had cultivated. Claire adjusted Liam's jacket, brushing a stray strand of hair from his forehead, and Ethan noticed the familiar tilt of the boy's head, the curve of his smile, and the slight movements that mirrored his own, a living echo of the past that intensified the quiet tension in Ethan's chest. He spoke gently, asking Liam about his favorite games and listening intently to each answer, offering encouragement and validation in a tone that was warm, calm, and steady, creating a rhythm of interaction that both respected Claire's role and demonstrated his sincere intent. Claire exhaled slowly, allowing a subtle relaxation of her posture, recognizing the deliberate care in Ethan's actions, the patience and attentiveness that distinguished his approach from abrupt intrusion. Liam laughed as he successfully balanced on the bridge, his excitement spilling into the open air, and Ethan mirrored the emotion with a soft, genuine smile, reinforcing a sense of safety, warmth, and shared joy. The breeze picked up slightly, ruffling Claire's hair and the edges of Liam's jacket, and Ethan adjusted his stance, remaining alert and considerate, aware that every step, word, and gesture could influence the delicate equilibrium of trust. Being re-established. He continued to engage Liam in play, observing Claire's reactions carefully, speaking with measured warmth and patience, and noting the subtle softening in her expression as the afternoon unfolded. Each interaction, each shared laugh and small triumph, led upon the last, creating a quiet but potent bridge across years of distance and absence. Ethan understood that progress was measured in these small, deliberate exchanges, that patience and genuine care were essential, and that the connection they were beginning to rebuild could grow steadily with consistent attention and respect. As the sun continued to sink toward the horizon, bathing the playground in a golden light, Ethan allowed himself to feel hope, recognizing that these moments, delicate and tentative, held the promise of a future where mother, son, and father could begin to navigate a new chapter together, slowly, thoughtfully, and with intention. Ethan stepped back slightly, allowing Claire to lead Liam toward the small picnic table at the edge of the playground, the sunlight now casting longer shadows across the soft ground and the surrounding greenery. He observed the boy carefully, noting the subtle patterns of his gestures, the way he reached for the small water bottle and arranged his toys in an orderly line, a reflection of his growing independence and attention to detail. Claire placed a gentle hand on Liam's shoulder, guiding him as she spoke quietly, explaining the importance of sharing and patience, and Ethan listened, absorbing not only her words but the rhythm and tone, understanding the care with which she nurtured and taught her son. He remained silent for the moment, content to observe, recognizing that his presence alone could influence the dynamics and that any sudden movement or word could disrupt the careful balance they had begun to establish. Liam glanced up at Ethan, curiosity shining in his eyes, and Ethan offered a soft smile, nodding slightly, as if to say that he was both present and safe, ready to participate only in ways that respected the boy's space and the mother's guidance. Claire adjusted Liam's jacket, the smallest movements conveying both care. and subtle boundaries, and Ethan felt the weight of the years he had been absent, realizing that every interaction now had to be measured, intentional, and grounded in patience and respect. He finally spoke, his voice calm and gentle. "Liam, would you like me to help you set up your next game?" And the boy's face lit up with a mixture of delight and anticipation, turning to Claire for approval. She nodded slightly, a small gesture of consent, her eyes revealing a mixture of caution and a tentative trust, signaling that Ethan's careful, patient approach was being accepted, at least for now. As Liam began to arrange his toys with Ethan's guidance, the boy's laughter and animated chatter filled the air, blending with the soft sounds of the park and the distant cityscape, creating a warm, inviting ambience. Ethan offered encouragement, speaking in a measured tone, carefully validating the boy's efforts while subtly reinforcing that he was a positive presence, someone who could be trusted without overstepping boundaries. Claire watched closely, her posture gradually relaxing, her expression softening as she observed Ethan's consistent care and attention, and she felt a small, cautious hope that perhaps this afternoon could mark the first step toward a new rhythm of interaction among them. The sunlight dipped further, illuminating Liam's hair and highlighting the careful, delicate interactions between mother and child, and between father and son, each movement, glance, and word layered with significance, signaling the potential for trust and connection to grow steadily. Ethan continued to engage with gentle questions, encouragement, and subtle guidance, always observing Claire's reactions, attuning to the balance between engagement and respect, and recognizing that these moments, though small and measured, were laying the foundation for a meaningful relationship that had been absent for far too long. As the playground began to quiet with the fading afternoon light, Ethan allowed himself a tentative sense of hope, knowing that the careful, patient attention he and Claire maintained could nurture a bond that was both enduring and deeply rooted in mutual respect, care, and shared joy. Ethan watched the late afternoon sunlight fade into a soft amber glow, casting long shadows across the playground, and he felt a quiet determination settle over him as he observed Liam finishing the last of his tower, carefully stacking the final bucket and stepping back to admire his work. Claire stood close, her hands resting lightly on her hips, a small, thoughtful smile on her lips as she watched her son, and she allowed herself a brief moment to relax, appreciating the patience and care Ethan had shown, the way he had engaged without rushing or overstepping, creating a space where both she and Liam could feel safe and respected. Ethan stepped forward slightly, maintaining an unobtrusive presence, and said softly, "Liam, that is an amazing tower. You worked very hard, and it shows." The boy's eyes sparkled, and he turned to Claire, beaming with pride, and she whispered, "He is wonderful, and I am proud of him," her voice carrying warmth and a subtle acknowledgement that the bridge between them was beginning to form. Ethan nodded gently, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension, knowing that this tentative trust could either strengthen with careful attention or be easily disrupted, and he chose to remain patient, observing the small cues of comfort and engagement that signaled acceptance. Liam began to run toward the swings, calling back over his shoulder, "Do you want to push me?" And Ethan smiled, a soft laugh escaping him. "I would be honored to," stepping forward to provide gentle guidance, keeping his hands at a safe distance, ready to support without dominating. Claire watched intently, noting the subtle adjustments Ethan made to ensure safety, his attentiveness and calm presence, and she felt a cautious optimism that perhaps this man, this father figure, could exist in their lives without disrupting the careful balance she had maintained. Liam's laughter filled the air as he swung higher, the sunlight catching in his hair and highlighting the joyful expression on his face, and Ethan mirrored the motion with encouraging words, carefully timing his comments to affirm Liam's courage and effort. Claire allowed herself to breathe more freely, recognizing that trust was being built moment by moment, in small interactions, and she felt a tentative warmth toward Ethan, acknowledging the sincerity in his behavior, the patience and attentiveness that had carried them through the afternoon without conflict or tension. The playground slowly emptied as the day faded, and Ethan continued to engage in small, deliberate interactions with Liam, observing Claire's reactions and ensuring that every gesture, every word, maintained a balance of respect, care, and attentiveness. As the sun dipped further, casting the park in golden light and soft shadows, Ethan realized that this afternoon marked a meaningful first step, a careful laying of the foundation for a relationship that could grow over time, one built on patience, trust, and the shared joy of father, mother, and son experiencing the present moment together. He looked at Claire and then at Liam, feeling a quiet resolve, understanding that the next steps, while uncertain, were filled with possibility, and that the careful, thoughtful attention he maintained could slowly transform a tentative connection into a lasting bond, bringing a sense of hope and continuity that had been absent for far too long.